Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, known as the DCCC, is right now in the midst of defending one of the most egregiously ridiculous Democratic members of Congress in the last 30 or 40 years. Marie Newman challenged Dan Lipinski in a Chicago district in 2018. She came within 2,000 votes of beating the guy, but he hung on. This is a guy who is anti-gay. He's against $15 minimum wage. He's anti-immigrant. He's anti-choice. He's pretty much against the entire Democratic agenda, not the progressive agenda, but even the mainstream Democratic agenda. The DCCC is rallying to his defense and has told consultants that if they work for Marie Newman, they cannot work for any DCCC-backed candidate. That means any incumbent. In other words, they're pretty much run out of the party. So now Marie Newman is losing consultants. It appears that after the news broke that this was happening, a lot of consultants who aren't afraid of the DCCC or just starting out in business and need the business are reaching out to her, and she might be okay. But let me give you a little background on who this Daniel Lipinski character is. This goes back decades. 1975. Bill Lipinski, Dan Lipinski's dad, is elected, and I'm using the term elected very loosely here because this is the Chicago machine that we're talking about, elected to be basically the boss of what's known as the 23rd Ward. That same year, he's elected to be a city councilman under the kind of Daley machine. Now, in the 1980s, there's a bit of an insurgency, and a guy named Harold Washington, with the backing of the DSA, wins as an insurgent. He governs until his death in 1987 and goes through what are known as the council wars. Now, Bill Lipinski was on the wrong end of these council wars. In other words, a leftist mayor was elected in 1983, and the city council that was still in control of the machine did everything they could to bottle up his agenda until he was able to break the back of that machine. When he died, the machine was able to take back over. So then in 1992, after the 1990 census, the machine drew a district for Bill Lipinski that made it so that the 23rd Ward, his machine, could basically put whoever it wanted into office. Who did the machine pick to put into office? Bill Lipinski. Bill Lipinski then served in this deeply Democratic district as a far right-wing Democrat until 2004, when after the primary, he announced his retirement. He went off to become a lobbyist, and he remains, to this day, in his 80s, the committee man for the 23rd Ward. He still literally runs this machine. But so the primary is over, and he says he's retiring. That means they need a new candidate to run. Who do they take? A professor named Daniel Lipinski, Bill Lipinski's son. So he literally just gets his name stuck on the ballot. No primary challenge. And it's such a Democratic district that he basically didn't have to run a campaign against a Republican. This is the same guy who in 2018, he faced an actual Nazi. If you remember that story, there was a literal Nazi won the Republican nomination because there are so few Republicans in the district. Nobody seemed to care. Okay, let the Nazi have a crack at it. And so from 2004 up until 2018, this guy, Dan Lipinski, who never had to run for election in the first place, just coasted. And he voted against the Democratic agenda at every opportunity. Now in 2019, Marie Newman is back in the race, and she has the support of some of those groups that she had in 2018, but not all of them, because the DCCC is taking a much harder stance, believe it or not, this cycle than they were last cycle against primary challengers, even against primary challengers who are running against people like Dan Lipinski. So Emily's List has not yet endorsed Marie Newman. Planned Parenthood has not yet endorsed Marie Newman. However, Democracy for America, PCCC, have just gotten in the race. Justice Democrats has not yet, perhaps because Marie Newman is not far left enough for them. She's a fairly standard progressive Democrat, not a kind of fire-breathing Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. But just today, they had DFA announced that they're going to be raising money for them. Move On is likely to get in and start raising money for Marie Newman against Dan Lipinski. You know, the DCCC likes to accuse people like the Young Turks, like The Intercept, like Ocasio-Cortez, of sparking a civil war within the party. But when the shots are fired, look at what direction they usually come from.